Hi, this is Bill Knauer of Author Magazine, and tonight we're talking to Summer Wood, author of Wrecker. We sat down at Third Place Books in Lake Forest Park and discussed the importance of listening, of place, and of how no novel has an easy way out. Enjoy.
In some ways, I'm an agreeable person, but in other ways, I'm very stubborn. And the thing that I've probably been most stubborn about is my writing, and feeling like I couldn't really go anywhere that I hadn't sort of figured out on my own. I had to really learn step by trial and error. But I learned as I went along that really my personal impulse is toward the novel. It's toward that scope, that long narrative arc, you know, the larger cast of characters, all of those things. And once I understood that I had to do that, then things sort of fell in place for me to be able to take a little time, really 9 months full-time to write Arroyo, another 6 months half-time. So what I did was I took myself to a writing conference, and I went to Writers at Work in Utah. And while I was there, I got feedback from other people, and it was an amazing experience to realize that my work was gaining the attention that it was there, and it gained the attention of an agent while I was there who agreed to represent me. And a series of other things happened. I've completed the novel. Pam Houston read it, really liked it, mentioned it to a couple of people, and then we had some publishers express interest in it, and very quickly Chronicle made an offer on it. So that was one of those sort of magical things. And in a way, I thought that was what life was going to be like, you know. I was just, I've written a novel, I know how to do this, you know, move on forward. And so I started the second one thinking, I got my chops up, you know, and give myself 2 years to do this. And I dug myself a really deep hole in 2 years. Just pages and pages and pages and characters that just spread out and out and out. And so it was a number of years of going through that, and finally realizing that I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how I wanted to take this book, but I needed the time, not working, to be able to really do it. And so I applied for a grant from A Room of Her Own Foundation, and that was incredible. It was a total Hail Mary pass. I just went out on a limb, applied on the last possible day, and I got the call that said that I had received this grant, and it made it possible for Wrecker to come out. Every time that I try to kind of figure something out analytically in my fiction, it goes awry. You know, it's just terrible. But I can trust my intuition. And so what I do is I kind of subvert that analytical mind into studying natural history, studying science, reading maps, learning about all these associated things, doing research, right? Which doesn't often make it into the book, but in some ways I think gives the work a richness. So it's not that I would disparage that at all. It's worth doing, but it's definitely, my process is intuitive. I have to kind of let my imagination swirl around in there to make the fiction come. One time I was writing, and I had totally forgotten that I had an appointment for a checkup thing. I had gotten health insurance or life insurance or something like that. And so this guy came to the house to do a checkup, but I was writing, and he took it was one of those really quick little things, but he took my blood pressure, and it was like 70/50 or something. I was like, I'm not sure you're alive, you know. But I think it's that thing of when you're writing, when you're really deep into the writing, you are very actively listening. That's probably the closest analogy, you know, to what that is. You're so receptive to kind of what your imagination and all of that other stuff that we don't have a name for really provides you. So it's very much like listening, yeah. Place, or to call it setting, like any other narrative element, is going to have to work, you know, for a rich work of fiction, it's going to have to work multiply. And I think it's something that often writers will kind of neglect. They think of it as a backdrop. And so, you know, it's beautifully described, and it's a place for the characters to move upon. But there's also a sense in which place can have agency. You know, it can be the repository for meaning that gets developed over the course of a work of fiction, and then what happens with that, it can be as profoundly active as an enormous storm, say, or something where the land is actually changing. Or it could simply be a radical shift in the way that a character looks at a place, as for example, when someone has felt the place was home and lost that sense of home. But that relationship that the characters hold to that place and the interplay of all of that is really interesting to me. You know, I think that the hardest lesson for me, or the lesson that I most did not want to learn, that I least wanted to learn, was that the work itself will have its own timetable, that you have to go where it will take you. There are no shortcuts in this process. And so certainly I've learned to write faster and stronger and with greater competence, but that's still not going to give me any way around all of the emotional terrain that had to be traveled to get to this work. And now that I'm finished, I can say, okay, that was worth it. It really, the work has a depth that I wanted because I took that time and I traveled that distance. But while I was in the middle of it, it feels terrible, you know? Sometimes it feels like you're never going to get to the end of it. And besides, who wants to be stuck in there in the middle of all of that? But I think that that's a really exciting thing, is you're in it. No matter how many times I believe you've done this, there's no easy way out of that. You don't just land in there and say, oh, well, this is the route. You know, I know the path now. Everyone is going to be different. And it sounds so cliche, but it really is the journey of each book that you have to go through to make it worth your while. Otherwise, we'd just be kind of doing formulas, you know, and who needs that?